Hello, Divine Souls, and welcome to Introduction to Tarot, where we're exploring the Major Arcana for growth and expansion. This video is introducing the Empress. If you're new to this series and have not yet watched Part 1 video, Introduction to Major Arcana, then I encourage you to first watch that video, then continue exploring the other videos in the series for each card. Part 1 offers preliminary information that sets a foundation for this series and offers pertinent information in how to work positively with the cards and how to honor the process of working with the Tarot Major Arcana relevant to this series. So if you've already watched Part 1, let's get started. If you have not watched Part 1, please pause this video and return to it after you've watched that video. This is the fifth video of a series of videos that will present each one of the Major Arcana cards in the traditional Tarot to broaden your acceptance and elevate your gratitude for what the Tarot represent. The Tarot represent universal principles, challenges, and abilities that we all experience through the collective human experience. The Major Arcana cards can be a wonderful spiritual tool to heighten your higher abilities, to receive messages of light that will assist you on your growth and expansion journey. As stated earlier, this video is introducing the Empress, which is the fourth card of the Major Arcana. The Tarot cards each represent states of existence that we all experience, and the Empress card signifies the inherent divine abilities that we all possess. This card reflects the truth of our limitless internal divine loving nature that allows the magic of who we truly are to be experienced in realities that align with soul potential. If we have the heart to accept, acknowledge, embrace, and embody our divine birthright, to love and be loved, to embrace our divine feminine nature of soul that we all possess regardless of gender, we can balance and shift our energetic, mental, and emotional states at will to reflect our softer, compassionate, and empathetic divinity when operating from higher states of consciousness that open the potential of soul to flow through and co-create with the universe to manifest realities that empower our states of existence and allow our pure, authentic expression of truth to transcend the false core beliefs housed within lower vibrational states of ego. It is our responsibility to awaken to remember what we truly are and what we truly represent in physicality as human. Our oversoul, our higher self, already embodies all the divine universal principles of truth. It is our responsibility as the fragmented self in physicality to awaken and remember our authentic divine nature and transcend the ego states so we can live an existence that expresses our authentic nature and exercise all our higher abilities in the elevated dimensional states of consciousness. The Empress represents the universal principle of loving wisely, and the core attributes are healing negative attachments to mental past sorrow, breaking old patterns of falseness, such as self-sabotage, overextension, self-sacrificing, and self-abandonment, elevating self-respect, loving with wisdom, embracing divine nurturing nature, acceptance of divine feminine characteristics of self, valuing softness and wisdom, emotional stability, and the embodiment of our heart center and sacred feelings, But let's dive in a little deeper. The Empress represents the universal principle of loving wisely. The Empress is the fourth card in the Major Arcana and resonates to the frequency of 3. This card, above all others, specifically aims to represent the universal principle of the goddess, or yin divine energies within our nature, regardless of gender. This is also representative of the universal principle of loving in ways that embodies wisdom, grace, and a love that is soft and nurturing, yet magnetic and transformative. The Empress represents our nurturing and compassionate nature that is divine and beautiful, but if not managed with wisdom, can quickly turn into lower vibrational patterns within our ego states that disempower our states of existence through patterns like self-sabotage, overextending oneself, self-sacrificing tendencies that lead to emotional torment and mental despair. Deep-seated sorrow is harbored within our unconscious states when we dwell on the past too much and are not mindful of the present. It represents our capacity to experience internal torment through our unwillingness to let go of past experiences that we recall to memory and dwell on in excessive ways. And we often have a tendency to feed into the need to constantly talk about the same experiences over and over, like a broken record, because it's repeating in our minds so much. And herein lies the suffering and the internal sorrow. We get mentally trapped in the past, and this causes painful rehashing that emotionally closes us off to wanting to express our hearts. And we often start to question the value of our loving kindness due to our unwillingness to look at the past from an elevated state of higher understanding and exercise accountability, and look at our past like a map leading us to what our responsibility is to altering and resolving what is required so we don't keep repeating old destructive patterns and continue our internal suffering. When we're negatively dwelling on the past to this extent, it's impossible to be totally present because we engage all energies into our mind that only focus on past, which causes us great discontentment, and these internal states set us up to keep continuing patterns that bring about cycles of sorrow because we only process past experiences as failures. Ego mind will always stew on the negative and spiral us into states of victimization, and we start playing the blame game. It is only divine love that we feel and experience internally for self that ignites the connectivity to our heart center, which enlightens our conscious states of divinity to universe and soul. If our hearts remain closed off, so will our ability to receive intuitive wisdom. Love that flows in abundance through our heart center or heart chakra aligns frequencies to open a clear channel to receive the insight that is required to elevate our perceptions, to comprehend the lessons within the patterns that drive our choices through life. If we open our hearts and soften our perspectives and perceptions to receive the elevated wisdom within all things, we will see the value that all experiences have in teaching us something of value. This is very difficult for those stuck in the victim mindset because they don't get past the pain to observe the value within themselves that is encouraging how we perceive ourselves over and above how we perceive the actual experience that we encountered. If we harbor ill will towards others and ourselves because of past experiences we have encountered, or decisions we've made that brought about less than desirable outcomes, we will never heal what is required, and we will not learn valuable lessons that teach us how to adjust our approach, choices, and behaviors, and most importantly, how we observe past experiences that caused pain and suffering to alter the fate of our future. We must remain in a state of presence to hear higher wisdom of our divine soul. We must learn to not allow the past to jade our perspective of life and others, but soften our hearts to allow the healing nature that only love can offer. A bitter mind is toxic and will close our hearts off to feel our higher senses and experience paths that lead us to experiencing sacred emotional states that are free of lower vibrational energies of sorrow and regret. We must allow the transformative power of love to be internally embodied before we can externally reap the benefits of the internal metamorphosis process that allows us to experience the power of love in equal proportions, both to honor the positive ebb and flow of giving of ourselves and receiving from others in healthy ways that elevate self-respect. We all must learn how to balance the ways we extend ourselves and the ways we allow others to extend themselves. If we do not manage this flow of energy synergistically, we'll fall subject to following overextending patterns that sabotage our ability to receive and become more prone to sacrifice ourselves and negatively compromise our internal well-being mentally and emotionally, which will lead to physical ailments and stifle our spiritual transcendence. It's only a matter of time before our mental and emotional states that we neglect start to physically affect us. And spiritually, we must understand that everything in life has cycles, and the organic balance must be maintained to honor the cycles of energy flow, so we don't become stagnant and unmotivated or overpowering and aggressive. Our responsibility to self is not to become paranoid and closed off because we don't trust anyone or anything, especially ourselves. The greatest responsibility we have to self is to allow healing to transpire so we have no fear of our softer nature, and we open our hearts and trust our higher knowingness, our intuitiveness, and divinity of soul that always has the elevated answer we seek and the wisdom to know how to implement our external actions that are in alignment and work in harmony with the cycles of balance within our mental and emotional states. Emotions are connected to our higher senses and can be experienced in powerful and enlightened ways, but first we must calm the storms within the mind. We must learn to honor the cycles of flow and how we extend ourselves and remain balanced in the way we extend our time, energies, and actions to maintain equal balance in what is being extended back to us. We must honor the cycle of give and receive to maintain healthy and balanced emotional and mental states. We must choose wisely how much we give of ourselves and not overextend in ways that compromise our own self-respect that lead to more internal sorrow. It is always wise to set healthy boundaries, but the Empress especially teaches us to be wise enough to know when to let go and cut our losses for the sake of honoring our hearts and giving nature. We must embrace the nurture, but not sacrifice ourselves to save those that do not want to be saved. We cannot change anything that does not want to change, and the more we try, the more we'll suffer from overextending ourselves for those that see no value and anchor no deep gratitude for our efforts. Sometimes people are just not ready to embrace transformation. We must be wise in letting go of what we never have control of, which in this example is what others choose for their own states of existence. This is also honoring the cycle of all things. All things happen in their divine timing, not because we sacrifice ourselves to be the martyr for those that have no interest in embarking on their own metamorphosis journey. The Empress is an excellent reminder for us to always be loving and extend a soft approach to honor our divine feminine nature, but also to have the wisdom to understand that transformation only comes to those that seek it, with a desire that only comes from self-love and worth. We can always be kind and have compassion for others that are lost in suffering, but not to set ourselves up to be disappointed by placing expectations on others when our efforts are not well received or reciprocated. This is a lesson to remember when we're placed in situations like this, to exercise wisdom and not seek after their attention in a desperate attempt to force change or have a positive impact on those that have blinders on and are incapable of honoring our giving nature when they do not respect and honor themselves. This is when it is our responsibility to exercise soft discernment and choose how we interact and open ourselves to people that only prove time and time again that they're takers and not givers. The point is to not stew over it and cause deep sorrow and regret and mental anguish, but to choose to love ourselves enough to let go of our expectations that will never be met, or our grand deeds that will never be reciprocated. First and foremost, love must be extended to self before we extend love to others. If we do not honor this cycle, we will fall into ego states that promote desperation and sacrifice. We must always honor our feelings, but we also must accept our feelings and assess them to make sure that we're not feeding into ego states of negativity and unreasonable expectations. Expectations are truly destructive and only set our minds and emotions up to be disappointed. We must be wise about giving without expectation, but also wise enough to not overextend. Balance is only attained by being present in the moment with open heart and softened senses to receive the guidance from your soul through our intuitive pathways that always offer elevated wisdom, absent from the distortion of ego. Love is always the answer, but the way we wield our loving nature is important, so it is not distorted by ego states that will manipulate our minds to drive us to act in ways that seek to force our own agendas and not extending love in unconditional ways. Ego distorts every positive and enlightened aspect of ourselves. The only way to ensure that ego is not the driving force behind our actions isn't to disempower ourselves even more by seeking external resolution of any kind, but to do the internal work, to commit to healing the deep-seated pain and sorrow that is harbored in the core of our unconscious states. And through doing the dedicated work, we transmute pain and sorrow into love and self-acceptance, which strengthens our aptitude to act in ways that honor self-respect. Self-respect builds high self-esteem and elevates our states of existence into empowerment. We must not be unwise and make unwise decisions to act in ways externally towards the world as a desperate attempt at canceling out all that we are neglecting to face and heal internally. No amount of overextension, self-sacrificing, and self-sabotaging or self-abandonment will ever resolve our internal core of sorrow. The more we do for others is not going to cancel out what we're neglecting within ourselves. There is no amount of money that can be spent, no amount of giving that can be exhausted, no deeds great enough that are externally extended that will ever replace what our internal responsibility is to self. If we approach others in the external world from the mental angle that convinces us that if we are kind enough, loving enough, giving enough, and caring or nurturing enough, that this will somehow save us from our own internal turmoil, torment, and pain. And this is the biggest lie that we can tell ourselves, let alone believe. The Empress symbolizes the transformative aspect of love that must be extended internally for self before we will extend it to the world in ways that honor every elevated and divine aspect of our truest authenticity and divinity of soul. The Empress represents our responsibility in supporting transformation through the gateway of internal love that softens our mind to allow ourselves to embrace our divine nature, nurturing nature, and through this transformation, we transmute the obsessive and protective mind into the trusting and balanced heart. The challenges that require shadow work are nurturing, comforting, and supporting self in equal proportions to others. And this requires dedicated practice every day to recondition ourselves, how we approach self and how we approach the world. Holding oneself back emotionally, taking on the burdens of the world and people around us as a means of withholding truth that we feel because we fear rejection or that our feelings will be devalued. Because we have these toxic patterns, we overcompensate by taking on people's burdens and the burdens of the world to try to drown out our responsibility in speaking our truth and addressing our feelings and managing our emotional states. Emotional stability through assessing our internal motivating platforms that drive our decisions and external actions. In order to gain emotional stability, we must practice being in the moment, being present, not stuck in the past. We must go into meditation. We must take time for introspection to let go and sever the sorrows of our past that leave us trapped in unproductive ways to move forward and be in the present. Fear of being hurt or unaccepted, and especially our efforts being undervalued. Look to the past to explore the nature of the significant relationship with one's own mother and the example and model that was imprinted that we were conditioned to adopt as truth in the way we manage our internal world and how we manage our external relationships and dynamics. This is where assessing our core belief systems come into play and following the pathway into the past to see the conditioning and imprinting that led to what we house internally as core beliefs. Prioritizing what is important and what is not by assessing our internal emotional states. Not abandoning ourselves for external resolve and not trying to desperately gain control to force others to accept us and value us if they lack the elevated understanding to project gratitude in unconditional ways and value efforts of others in ways that don't attach expectations and how it is self-serving. Learning to express our emotional states from a place of integrity and honesty, and not withholding our authentic expression of truth caused by fear of abandonment. Embodying the Empress. These are positive affirmations to utilize to assist in your transformation process. I embrace the lessons I have learned, as difficult as they were to learn. They serve me in teaching me to be more wise about how I extend myself and my loving energy. I release resentment of all my past experiences back to the universe. I dedicate energy and focus my energy into a promise to self now. And this promise is to elevate my commitment to respecting and honoring myself first. I acknowledge my ability to emotionally commit to others in healthier ways because of this promise I have set. I release old programming of unhealthy extension and destructive self-sabotaging patterns back to the universe. I accept now that I have courage within me, and I embrace that courage to strengthen my confidence, to embrace the truth that I am a being of light, worthy of all this world has to offer within the positive paradigms of light. I release my anxiety, I release my worrisome mind, I release my fear of disappointment back to the universe. I support my divine right to receive love and extend love to myself in abundant ways. I state this promise to myself now. I promise to dedicate time every day to reinforcing this promise by allowing myself the right to do generous things for myself before I commit to doing generous things for others. I step into the elevated understanding that it is my responsibility to maintain the balance of the ebb and flow of energy I receive and give. I will respect and value my own needs over and above needs of others. I embrace the truth that this does not make me selfish, but wise in the way that I love myself. I must commit to elevating self-esteem and increasing self-love and self-worth in creative and expansive ways. Nothing can be taken from me that I do not willingly surrender. I release fear of abandonment, fear of victimization within my ego mind that creates worry, stress, anxiety, and despair back to the universe. I acknowledge that my ability to help others starts by first helping myself. I have a responsibility to honor my own well-being. I embrace the truth now that I will only disappoint those that do not honor my well-being and that expect more from me than what is mine to extend. I let go of unhealthy mental thought processes of disappointing others and embrace my right to love and honor my own well-being. I respect myself enough to acknowledge my feelings. I do not fear rejection from others because I accept myself. Sharing my feelings is not a burden to those who genuinely care about me and my well-being. I understand the difference between complaining with no interest of resolve and presenting what is required for me to feel equal and valued. I value the process of letting go of what is silencing my potential to be mentally and emotionally well. I release now fear of change back to the universe. I elevate my understanding of love and embrace the higher knowing that valuing others is allowing them to express their love and kindness to me. I embrace loving with wisdom. I release all mental and emotional fear of others taking advantage of me back to the universe. If you'd like to take advantage of a guided meditation I created, I highly recommend the Healing Transmission guided meditation for the heart chakra. Thank you for listening. If you found this information be valuable, please subscribe to this channel and show your support. Like this video, click the bell so you receive future notifications on upcoming videos for this series, and share this information with someone you feel would benefit. Bye for now.